The Daniel Blair Show. Sponsored by Motosport.com, Mika Metals, Race Tech, ASV Inventions, and Guts Racing.
If you like overreaction and if you like the Daniel Blair Show, then you are going to love Main Event Moto. Come hang with us over at patreon.com/Main Event Moto. We see the comments. We know you want more. We know you want longer. Well, that's what we do at Main Event Moto. We have long-form podcasts where we break everything down layer by layer, and we have a really, really good time. Sometimes too much fun, and that's the point. So come join us over at patreon.com/Main Event Moto. Let's party. So many storylines leaving Seattle, but there can only be one lead story, and it's Cole Davies. Wow, Cole, that was incredible. From a flat qualifying run to a heat race win that led to a well-earned and dominant main event victory, I'm beyond proud of what you did and who you have become. It's not just grabbing a win that makes a night special, it's how it happened. It's how you got there. It's the backstory that makes everything understandable. And in previous stories I've told here, I've had to dig deep and research and learn things I didn't know. This one is different and means more to me than I could ever explain. I'm very lucky to be one of the people who played a role, as Cole's dad, Wayne Davies, reminded me last Saturday night after the race. A small role, in my opinion, but enough of a role that it made the house a little dusty last Saturday night, not gonna lie. Now, many will have their own story with Cole. I'd love to hear Ben Townley talk about his youth and his creation. I'd love to hear Will Hahn share stories of the struggle they overcame together in 2024. And based on Cole's sudden extrovert personality, I'm guessing we'll hear from him soon too. My story of Cole is unique, and in order for me to share it fully, I have to go back a little further, have to dig a little deeper and share a few things I never have. It wouldn't be a complete story without all of it. And it does actually lead to a pretty rad ending for myself and some breaking news. So here it is, Cole Davies, ClubMX, and the raddest story I've ever told. It started for me at Loretta's in 2022, yeah, way back when. It was my first weekend on the job as team manager for Orange Brigade. I walked on site with minimal knowledge of my roster and minimal knowledge of the amateur prospects. But I knew we had Dax Bennick, and I knew I wanted a 13-year-old kid named Landon Gibson. Gibson would prove himself immediately and would be the first kid I ever signed. And between Bennick and Gibson, I had two of the most important pieces of what would be my roster. And I had a vision and a goal to start a dominant run of amateur killers in hopes that 10 to 15 years down the line, I'd have a legacy as the best scout in the sport's history. That was my goal. And since Dax lived near my home in South Carolina, I started working with him right away to execute my vision, and I was blown away. He was and is the real deal, and his day will come. Unfortunately, I lost Dax right away. Why? Well, to be blunt, upper management didn't see it in him. They dragged their feet and let him walk right out the door, and he would take a tryout ride with Star Yamaha. I remember the sit down in the car with Dax and his dad, Todd. I was furious, and I almost resigned over it. They let my most lethal weapon walk right into the enemy's hands and destroy the top of my roster with the snap of a finger. How do you think it felt a few months later when I had to call his first Futures win at Anaheim?
Daxton Bennick wins Supercross Futures in Anaheim.
That night was such a mixed bag. Amazing for me in one sense and terrible as well. It was my first booth night of the 2023 season and we crushed it. But there was Dax winning, not for me, but for Star. Damn it. But a couple other things happened that night that played a role in this story. Juju Beaumer broke out in qualifying. KTM was blown away and would do me a solid a few weeks later and let me sign the kid as Dax's replacement. One of the really cool stories from my time there. And that night I watched a short kid on a Yamaha, number 17, finish fourth in his first Futures main event, a kid named Cole Davies. I thought, that was interesting. He looked pretty good, and he was 15? A few weeks later, I shared my thoughts on Cole in the infamous Blair's Breakdown video, a better moment from that episode.
I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of years if Cole Davies is a kid who is leading and winning some of these Supercrosses, because you can't be that good at 15 and it not go somewhere. I'm sorry, but he is way too good for that age, so keep an eye on Cole Davies. He's going to be someone that we're going to have to pay attention to in the future.
Little did I know what would come of this clip, and little did I know of my future relationship with the Davies family that was 6 months away. But unfortunately, Cole got hurt and missed the rest of Futures, and that would be the end of his year indoors. Juju would go on to win the Glendale Futures main event a few weeks later in what would be the final booth night of my TV career, which again, just like Anaheim with Dax, would be a devastatingly confusing night in my life.
And he's gonna grab the checker. Julian Beaumer wins the Supercross Futures from Glendale.
But this time it was roles reversed. Instead of loving TV and being tortured by the outcome of the Futures race, I loved the outcome for Juju while I suffered through my final night as play-by-play for Supercross. As you all know, I would resign from TV 6 weeks later and put all my focus into Orange Brigade. I had an opportunity to do something special, and I wasn't going to squander that opportunity. A few months later at the Redbud Combine, my roster of Casey Cochran, Juju Beaumer, Ryder McNabb, Preston Baseflug, and Mark Finnis would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the second moto, and Cole Davies popped back up. He grabbed a good start and ran up front for a bit, but would be shuffled back and finish outside of relevance. For a 15-year-old kid from overseas, that was still impressive. The balls to throw yourself up front unprepared in a foreign land was pretty intriguing and noticed. A few months later came Ironman. This is the day I met Cole and the day I met Wayne. The day a seed was planted in what would go on to be my best decision as a team manager, by far. I was there that day with Landon Gibson, remember, the first kid I signed when I got the job. Landon was racing his first big bike race that day at 14 years old, and I wanted to see it go smoothly, so I flew in and hung with him the entire day, way out in the Combine parking lot, where Cole Davies was parked next to him. I get a call from Will Hahn, a former 250 Supercross champ and friend of mine, who I actually lived with in 2009 when I filled in for Brett Metcalf at Geico Honda. Will was young back then and was pretty wild, not gonna lie, but he grew up and matured into a Supercross champ, and if he had a thought, or a point, or an idea, I would always listen closely. He's very smart and has an understanding with younger riders and a natural connection. He asked me to meet him at the Davies pit. I was sitting in a chair 50 feet away when he called and I said, "Bro, I'm here. I'm looking at their camper." Next came a conversation with Will, Wayne, and Cole. I saw his bike, got a debrief about his program, and learned of his relationship with the legend Ben Townley. Interesting. I tried to talk to Cole, but he wouldn't speak at all, but he did look me in the eyes when I spoke to him. Then afterwards, I had a lengthy conversation with Will. He asked me to sign him and said, "I promise you I'll make this work. I'll take him in and he'll deliver." So I decided to take a hard look at it. I was juggling a decision at this very time. On the roster was a kid named Mark Finnis and a kid named Landon Peppard. I was very close with both of them and was trying to decide which one would get our Gas A package for 2024. Our A package came with the good engines and suspension, and truth be told, they both deserved it. Finnis had just finished second at the SMX finale at the LA Coliseum, and he had just won an A moto at Loretta's, while Peppard had finished second to Casey Cochran at Loretta's and Schoolboy 2, and had overcome more than most know to make himself relevant in a brutal class. And the kid had unmatched heart and drive, and I wanted both of them to get it so bad. But there was only room for one. My gut told me Cole was the pick. He was different, and my instincts were leaning to him, but it was still undecided. I was then told by someone that this would blow up in my face, move on from two kids that earned that spot, who happened to be American and had a long history on the team, and give it to a kid nobody's ever heard of who happened to be foreign and had a mullet? If this goes bad, I was told, it'll be an epic fail that will never leave your resume. I signed Cole. I don't like being doubted, and I don't like being told what may happen if I fail. I don't look at life that way. I'm just not wired that way. Plus, Will Hahn assured me this would work, and I trusted Will. I trusted Leighton in our motor department, and I trusted my crew chief, Jedediah Rodriguez, and I picked Cole. Roll the dice, red 17. Cole would go on to win the first Futures race in 2024 at Anaheim in an epic battle with Gavin Towers. This was the biggest relief of my KTM story. Instead of making me look stupid, he made me look like a genius. And oh baby, was it a race. By far the best race of the night. But could he back it up? He would need to for it to stick. Then came a regression, not in his riding, but in his results. Second at Daytona to Drew Adams, not bad. Third at St. Louis to Drew Adams again, and my kid Landon Gibson. How about that? Then Cole got punted off the track in Foxborough by my other kid, Luke Fauser, Cole's first night off the podium. He was starting to look like a one-hit wonder, not to those on the inside, but to everyone on the outside. It didn't look great, which I was reminded of. by a few people. But behind the scenes, Cole was actually getting faster, stronger, more comfortable. The results weren't there, but he was like a bomb waiting to go off. And at Salt Lake City, the bomb went off, and a dominating win righted all the wrong and set in motion a chain of events that would eventually lead to his win in Seattle this past Saturday and would lead to my departure from KTM this past December. I loved KTM, and I still love those guys. But their business struggles were real at that time and played a big role in me losing Cole to Star after Salt Lake City. This one stung bad, like losing Dax Bennick all over again. I had no chance to keep him. I was the amateur guy. My influence stopped at amateurs, and the pro teams above me didn't have a spot for Cole and didn't have the financial ability to be creative. And just like that, he was gone. I can't even explain how hard that was. But I had an obligation to the rest of my roster. I just kept going, but it was the beginning of the end. Due to their situation, I couldn't give my all anymore. I couldn't take gambles and couldn't use my scouting and recruitment ability. My hands were tied behind my back, and I was operating in a box so small that I couldn't breathe. So I resigned. This year, watching Cole succeed on blue didn't hurt anymore. It's pretty simple. I'm a Cole Davies fan now. I'm a believer from my couch, and I'm lucky enough to still be close with Cole and his dad, Wayne. The roles have somewhat reversed, actually. Wayne is helping me as a dad, guiding me through my journey with my son, and helping me navigate dad life with an aspiring kid who wants to make it like Cole. It's rewarding on another level, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, Wayne, and again, congrats. Congrats to Ben Townley and Will Hahn. You boys crafted a phenom. And Cole, congratulations to you too, bro. You deserve this and everything coming your way. Sometimes in life, things make no sense at all and can make perfect sense at the exact same time. Last week, I get a call from Brandon Haas, the owner of ClubMX, and he says, Daniel, I haven't been able to shake this idea of you being part of our program, but I understand your reservations of hitting the road for 31 weeks, leaving your family and your son Evan behind again. What if we did something bigger? You see, we had an almost thing happen 7 months ago that didn't turn out. But a seed was planted and a relationship began, and that led to this call, and that call led to a drive out to Club last Wednesday where Brandon and I walked and talked and shared visions and ideas. We realized very quickly that there was something there. He was the person I always needed, who would give me the keys to take things as far as I wanted without anchors. I never had that in TV. I never fully had that at KTM. And for him, well, his goals and dreams for Club would never materialize unless he was cut free of certain duties, and he needed someone to relieve him so he could shift up a gear. Those duties happen to be where I'm at my best, a perfect fit. So I hung out for a few hours. I watched Cody Schock put in his work that would lead him to a Seattle heat race win. I watched Max Vohland put in his work I've watched since he was a little kid. Max's dad, the legend Talon Vohland, was a mentor to me in my younger years, rode at my track and practiced and coached me during my first 2 years racing pro Supercross while he was in his prime. I hung with Mike B. and Ben Graves, and I wandered around envisioning what life would be like there. It was perfect. It was a dream come true. Next came the quickest, easiest, and simplest negotiation I've ever had, and I'm pretty sure Brandon has ever had too. We couldn't agree to terms any faster, and I began putting in place a life change that I didn't really see coming. But it's here. Today, as you watch this, I am on site at ClubMX as the new general manager. I'll be assisting in everything that happens there, but putting my focus into two main responsibilities. I'll be the head Supercross coach, which is a dream come true, and I'll be in a new role and title for the sport that mimics the NFL and the NBA, something I've envisioned forever. I'll be the director of rider personnel, responsible for scouting, recruiting, negotiating, signing, and managing the roster for the pro and amateur team. Seriously, pinch me. Wake me up from this dream. It doesn't feel real, but it is. My life has been a roller coaster of a ride, and to have this opportunity with Club is another blindside gift from God. You know, I never seeked a life in TV. I got a call to audition. I never seeked a job with KTM. I got a call that led to a job offer. And I never seeked this. I got a call from Brandon. God works in mysterious ways, but he's pretty obvious when you relentlessly pray for clarity, which I have done the past 6 months. 10 years ago, I tattooed the Bible verse, Psalm 18:32, on my arm. barely knew what it meant. It was something about God being my strength. What it actually says is, it is God who gives me strength and makes my way perfect. And as rough as I've had it, as up and down and left and right as my life has been, my way, my path, my journey has been perfect. Amen. And we'll see you next week.
Main event motormerch.com. Main event motormerch.com. Main event motormerch.com.